If you think the global paranoia and hysteria surrounding the 2019 coronavirus outbreak is a little overblown, you're wrong. The disease, which began in Wuhan, China, has now infected more than 70,000 people and killed more than 1,500. Hong Kong's public health epidemiologist recently declared that up to 60% of the world's population could be infected if the virus is not stopped. In response to the virus, China is imposing a lockdown on massive chunks of its own population, controlling people or goods in at least 16 of its own cities that have been quarantined. And the country has even started disinfecting its own banknotes. China has every reason to panic. It is the world's second biggest economy, with a GDP of $13.6 trillion and an average growth of around 7% each year. But the virus can bring the growth rate down to between 3 to 5%. Many Chinese factories delayed opening after the Lunar Year out of fears of the virus. Small and medium businesses have been extremely affected by the general climate of fear. Chinese tourists, which are a big source of income in Southeast Asian countries, have dropped significantly by 55%. As The Guardian recently reported, there is a precedent of global diseases causing mayhem on the world economy. The SARS epidemic of 2003, which killed around 750 people and infected 8,000, caused an estimated damage of $30 to $50 billion. Right now, China's economy represents 10.9% of global goods imports in 2018, compared with 5.3% in 2003 when SARS happened. Even now, some economists are speculating that the coronavirus disease, the COVID-19, could shave off 0.3 percentage points of global growth. So how might the coronavirus outbreak affect Pakistan's economy? Prophet takes a look. So far, Pakistan's reaction to the COVID-19 has been patently absurd, and there seems to be no national coherent policy about what to do. So if China's factories are shut down or are delayed, can our sluggish economy handle the disruption? Pakistan's industries. A February 11 report titled "Coronavirus has all the trappings of a black swan," prepared by AKD Securities, makes the case that Pakistan, which is geographically and closely aligned with China, will be negatively affected by the manufacturing disruptions in China. In particular, the country's domestic import of goods will definitely be impacted, and there might also be a chance of possible supply chain disruptions. The major trade risk is based on the fact that China has a very strong position in Pakistan's import mix. Of the top 20 commodities imported in the fiscal year 2019, China was the top supplier for 18 of them, including electrical material for telephones, fertilizers, synthetic yarn, semiconductors, medical instruments, and others. For 12 of these commodities, China constituted more than 50% of the total value imported, and for 10 of those commodities, China forms 25% or more of the total global export market. Analysts believe that there are significant risks to the cable and electrical and auto supply chain in Pakistan, because much of the core parts of these industries are sourced from China. Moreover, China has a very large share in global markets for all sorts of products, so finding alternative countries that provide those goods will be a tough and expensive challenge for Pakistan. This would lead to a rise in capital expenditure because sourcing equipment from Europe or other developed East Asian countries will probably lead to cost overruns. On the bright side, however, any long-cycle infrastructure projects such as those in power or transport will have a little more leeway. This is because of the extended timeline of those projects, which means that the COVID-19 will hopefully have subsided by then. Interestingly, there is a possibility where some local manufacturers might actually have an advantage in the short term. The report clearly states that the export growth emanating from any decline in global exports are at this point far-fetched. That is because Pakistan's exports are generally of low complexity, and much of the exports are also reliant on semi-finished or processed imports that are linked again back to China. In reality, if our exports are actually to benefit, it will be less due to the COVID-19 outbreak and more to do with the long-term Pakistan-China Free Trade Agreement, the FTA, which has at least 313 tariff lichens that do not have duties applicable. The report has points about the market as well, essentially that from a market perspective, heavy weightage banks and the upstream oil and gas sector are well shielded from the crisis. Long-term growth and financing for Pakistan. Another interesting report on COVID-19 from the international credit rating agency Moody's takes the view that this COVID-19 outbreak is temporary and will pass in a few weeks or months, and that even the countries that are most exposed have ample fiscal buffers to deal with a transitory shock. For the world, those economic implications will exhibit as a fall in tourist arrivals, weaker exports of goods to China, and disruption in the Chinese supply chain. Fortunately, or unfortunately depending on how you look at it, Pakistan neither relies heavily on Chinese tourists, nor exports substantially to China, nor really produces commodities. However, there are two ways in which Pakistan's economy might be affected, in case there is a sustained outbreak that might start having implications for countries that are not doing so great. That would include frontier markets like Pakistan. As the report notes, about 130 countries globally are engaged in Belt and Road projects with China. This would mean that the CPEC projects might have to be put on hold. As of now, there are 10,000 to 15,000 Chinese nationals working on different CPEC projects in Pakistan. Many of these nationals did not go home for the Lunar Year break, and due to the virus, many did not return home. Any further complications or delays might hamper the progress of the $62 billion CPEC initiative. But Chinese Ambassador to Pakistan Yao Zheng and Federal Planning Minister Asad Umar have claimed that nothing has or will stop CPEC. Indeed, Zheng thanked the Pakistani government and people for showing solidarity in China's difficult time, which provided them strength and more confidence. And if the virus were to continue, then there would be other additional second-order effects. The Moody's report notes that as market volatility rises, sovereigns that rely on foreign currency borrowing may face tighter financing conditions. These include frontier market countries with nearer-term funding needs, such as Mongolia, Sri Lanka, and Pakistan. Needless to say, with as many disruptions as the disease outbreak has currently caused, one would have hoped that the government of Pakistan would have a better approach to containing any damage that might occur. As the old saying goes, hope is not a strategy, and neither is showmanship, which the current administration seems to excel at.